I won. It was like insane. It was about 1 a.m. and me and Yui went to get chicken nuggets afterwards.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the My Defining Moments podcast. Today I'm joined by someone who is a 4-time Wimbledon champion, a double Paralympic medalist, and the first British tennis player to complete the calendar slam. Jordanne Whiley burst onto the scene as a teenager, competing at the Beijing Paralympics in 2008. She has since gone on to win a whopping 12 Grand Slam titles, including the US Open singles title in 2015. Jordanne was rewarded with an MBE for her success that year, and has continued to take to the courts following the birth of her son Jackson in 2018. So, without further ado, let's find out what 5 defining moments Jordanne has chosen. Hi Jordanne, thank you so much for joining me on My Defining Moments podcast. How's things going with you today?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not bad, thanks. So it's been a bit of a crazy 12 months for everybody, obviously, especially for you, training for the Paralympics that was delayed by a year. How have you coped with all that, the change in the last year?
Yeah, no, it's been really tough. Obviously, I think it's been tough on the whole nation. It's been a bit of a roller coaster of a ride, and it's been really difficult to keep training. And then I had a period, I think, of about 3 or 4 months where I didn't train at all, which was kind of nice because obviously I don't really get a break, and it was nice to stay at home with Jackson and have some family time and do like normal stuff like paint your house. But I did miss training, and I'm a routine kind of person, so it was really difficult to be out of routine.
Yeah, but like I said, it's been nice to have a bit of a break. I guess you haven't really had that since you had Jackson. So has it been nice to kind of just enjoy family time with Jackson and just enjoy being a normal person for a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I never get to do normal things. Like I said, I actually got to decorate, and we built an extension on the house, and obviously not personally built the extension, but just doing normal things. And it was actually really nice for a period of 3 or 4 months, just not having to worry about sport or training or being away from Jackson. And it was a rarity, so I really tried to embrace it.
Just going back to kind of the start of your story, what was it like in your early life, kind of learning to grow up with a disability and how that affected you as a child?
It wasn't easy, and I think in the early 90s, disability wasn't really the norm. I was the first person at my high school and at my primary school, I believe, to be disabled. So, I was the different one. I did grow up being bullied for the majority of my high school years, which wasn't fun, but actually there were positives there. I made some really special friends, and the school were really accommodating, especially towards my tennis, because when I was doing my GCSEs I was actually trying to qualify for Beijing as well, so they were incredible in allowing that to happen.
And obviously, your father, Keith, he competed in the Paralympics in 1984 and got a bronze medal in the 100 metres. I guess you would have grown up knowing a little bit about the Paralympics, and you must have been aware that there was, as a disabled child, you could actually do sport.
Yeah, I just grew up around disability my whole life, obviously with Dad, and it was kind of a comfort to know that Dad knew exactly what I was going through at different stages in my life when it came to my own disability. And it was really nice to grow up on the tennis tour, because you're surrounded by so many different people with so many disabilities, and I was always fascinated by it. And that's why I think it's really important for my son, actually, is just to be around different people, so it doesn't become sort of strange to him. And that's something that's really important to me in general, is that he's accepting of everyone, and he understands that everyone's different, but to not kind of like stare and everything like that. So yeah.
And can you just explain, I guess, the similarities between yours and your dad's disabilities and how you've kind of grown up with that?
Yeah, so there was like a 50-50 chance that I was going to get it from Dad. It's hereditary disease. Me and my half sister have it. And it was kind of like lucky dip. So fortunately, I'm not really quite sure which one it is, but yeah, I had it. We have like a mild form of brittle bone disease. There's like so many different types. It gets quite confusing, but we're like mild, moderate. So I can walk and stand, but just not for very long periods of time.
And then, because your dad was obviously competing a lot, and I believe that was kind of when you first picked up a tennis racket when you were about 3 years old. How did that come about?
Yeah, my dad was competing out in Israel. I'd actually broken my leg, so my whole leg was in plaster. And I couldn't do anything fun like swimming or anything. So my dad just gave me a racket, and I just remember sort of hitting with the other players like against the wall, and they were feeding me balls, and yeah, everyone was kind of amazed by it. Like, oh, this little 3-year-old with broken legs playing tennis quite well. And pretty much that was like the catalyst for everything. When I came home, my dad researched where to put me in terms of tennis, and started doing tennis camps and started doing like once a week little training, and yeah, that was it.
And what was it about tennis in particular that you enjoyed personally? Obviously, you probably showed promise at it, but you must still enjoy it to put in all that kind of hours of training. What is it about the sport that you love?
Yeah, I did really enjoy it. I've never really been like a team player. I'm more of a lone wolf. So for me, the individuality around tennis was just incredible because everything was on me. Like if I did well or if I did bad, it was on me. And that's something I really thrive off. And I like to sort of problem solve. I like to work out if things are, if your forehand's dodgy one day, it's kind of like working out how to get that back and tactics and every day is different at training. Like you can work on so many different things, aspects of tennis. And that's why I just love it so much.
And when was that kind of light bulb moment when you kind of realised that, I'm actually doing all right at this. This is something that could become a career for me, and this could be my life for the next 20 odd years. When was that moment?
I feel like I had sort of fake moments where in my early career I was quite lazy, and I went to Beijing and I was 16 and I was, this is incredible, this is what I want to do, but I wasn't really prepared to like put the work in. So sort of like I wanted it, but I didn't really want it. So I don't think it was quite late, actually. London 2012 was probably the first defining moment where I was like, wow, this is what I want to do. Because I got a bronze medal in the doubles. And if I'm honest, I was lazy and I hadn't put in a lot of work, the work that I felt like I should have. And it really hit me that I could just do so much better than that.
Well, yeah, you mentioned that you went to Beijing as a 16-year-old, and I guess, like you said, that must have been a pretty big deal. I mean, I'm assuming you were at school, and then all of a sudden you were training to go to Beijing. How was that whole experience of traveling into like a international Paralympics?
Yeah, it was really overwhelming. I'd literally done my GCSEs. I found out I was going to Beijing on my 16th birthday whilst I was competing at a World Cup. And then I went out to Beijing like so inexperienced. I was like bricking it, to be honest. Like I was just so overwhelmed. I was so nervous and I just felt kind of out of place. But I really felt like once I went to London, the experience I had in Beijing really helped London because I wasn't so overwhelmed or I wasn't so nervous because I knew exactly what was going to happen. I knew exactly what to expect.
And yeah, you mentioned London as the first of your 5 defining moments. It was obviously a home Paralympics, great success in terms of participation and fans and coverage. Did you feel any kind of pressure going into it as being the British hope in the wheelchair tennis?
Massive pressure. I was 19, and still, I would say I was still quite inexperienced, even though I'd achieved quite a bit by then. I felt so much pressure, and I knew that it was kind of like a one-time thing. I wasn't going to have a games at my home ever again, and I really did want a medal there. And I knew that the singles would be a bit of a push because I was still young and I wasn't even seeded at the time. So I really tried to focus on the doubles.
And obviously, you won with Lucy Shuki. You won the bronze medal. You two have obviously been the two British stars. You've kind of obviously played a lot of doubles together. How is that relationship between the two of you? Have you kind of got a nice team going there?
Yeah, I mean, I've known Lucy for so many years, and now we're in a really good place, and our relationship is the best it's ever been. And I'm actually really excited to play Tokyo with her.
You mentioned that London was kind of a moment where you realised how seriously you should be taking this, and did you change anything after that? How did you approach training once you'd got that bronze medal, in your bag?
Yeah, I mean, it did make a real difference to me. I think it was kind of just like put a rocket up my bum, and I was like, I either carry on sort of plodding along. I was riding off talent, everyone was like, oh, you're so talented. And it's a good thing, but it's also a bad thing when you're talented because you're sometimes lazy, right? And that's what I was doing. And I just realised that if I wanted to be the best and I wanted to get a gold and I wanted to go somewhere, then I needed to up the training. I needed to actually put in the effort. And that's what I did.
And I guess competing around that time, there was the likes of Esther Vergeer, who was like dominating, and the Dutch team as a whole are very strong. Did you look at them and think you could beat them, or how did you approach it when you played the Dutch girls?
Yeah, I mean, I always believed, and I still do believe that's never changed, that I am good enough to beat them all. It's more of a psychological thing with me. I think I know I've got the tennis ability. I know I've always had that. Tennis is such a mental game, and it's part of the game that I've struggled with for so long. And it is part of a game now that I'm really heavily invested in for Tokyo. So I knew that I could beat them, but I also knew that they were probably mentally stronger than me.
And is that something you've worked on in the last few years, then your mental approach and psychology and sports psychologist and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I've invested quite heavily in a new sports psychologist who's working alongside me really closely now. I think part of it was natural, actually, when I had my son. My mindset just changed, but there's so much more to sport, the pressures that you put on yourself. And I'm quite a perfectionist, which again is a good thing, but it's also a curse.
Especially being a tennis player.
Exactly. It's like impossible to have a perfect match, but in my head, no mistakes are allowed. So it's learning to be a bit more kind to myself, I think it is.
Yeah, celebrate the wins when they come along. You showed by working harder after London 2012 that things were getting better. 2014, you won your first Grand Slam in the doubles with Yui Kamiji at the Australian Open, and then that was leading on to your second defining moment, which is you completed the calendar slam in 2014. So it kind of went from an Olympic bronze to we've won all the majors, and you were the first British tennis player to do that. I mean, that's a huge moment for British tennis.
Yeah, it was a really historical moment, and it's not something we set out to do at all. It just happened. And then by the time we had got to Wimbledon, so we won Wimbledon, so we had 3 out of 4. And we kind of just said to each other, wow, we could actually do this. And then the pressure really hit because we were on the way to US Open. And then we got to the final, and I was just remember thinking how much pressure is on me right now, because the press was sort of just hanging over the fence, waiting. Everyone was talking about it. And it was I'd never been that nervous. Even I think at the Paralympics, I was never that nervous. And I wanted it so bad as well. But it was just something organic that happened.
And yeah, just talk us through the reaction when you actually did get a match point and it was done and you'd done it and you got the calendar slam. Is not easy in tennis. Not many have done it, and you're one of them. So how were your emotions that night?
Oh, I just remember that match. I remember actually before the match, I was so paranoid about everything that could go wrong, to the point where I actually had my hair in a French braid, which I never do. I've always got it in a bun. And I remember thinking, what if I have it in a bun and it keeps coming out, it's going to distract me? What about if it gets stuck in my racket? So I put it in a French braid. I had tight clothes on so nothing could happen there. I just went OTT. And I remember when we won, the relief that was over me, it was almost like I could have just passed out, because I was just so relieved it was over. And I couldn't believe it. I remember actually, I was doing a vlog at the time, and I actually looked back at this not long ago, and I did a video after the match, and you wouldn't even know I'd won a slam. I was literally so monotone. I was like, I've just won the US Open, because I was like so tired. I was like dead. You wouldn't have believed I'd just done what I did.
And of the 4 that you won that year, is there a favourite?
I think it's, for me, Wimbledon's just always special, right? I just absolutely loved Wimbledon, and that was the start of us winning like the first Wimbledon and going on to then win 4 in a row, which obviously I didn't know at the time, but winning Wimbledon was something I'd always wanted to do. And I think even if we hadn't have done the Grand Slam, it still would have been a special year, because it was the year that I first won Wimbledon.
And yeah, you actually won 5 in a row, because you won the Australian in 2015 as well. So yourself and Yui, how did that partnership come about? Because obviously in tennis you try different partners, and some work, some don't. What is it about this partnership that clearly works very well?
It was an accident, actually. In 2013, so the year before we did the calendar Grand Slam, I didn't have a partner because no one wanted to play with me, because like I wasn't very good. And Yui was sort of new on the scene, and she didn't have a partner because she didn't know anyone. She couldn't speak English. So I literally just messaged her on Facebook, like, Wimbledon ? And she was like, yes. And that was it. And I remember like all of our tactics were written down on a piece of paper. Like, she was a circle and I was a square. And it was just shambles. But it worked. Like, we got to the final that year. And we were really close to the Dutch team at the time. And that was it. We were like, should we just play a bit more together and see what happens? And then obviously I've never looked back.
And what is it about you two in terms of on court, how you play? What is it about your games that complement each other so well?
Because we're so opposite. We'd have like the most opposite game styles, which complement so well. Like, I'm more slice, aggressive, whereas Yui's more defense and like heavy spin. And we both move really well, and we just had like an instant connection. Some people I think you just click with, and it was evident to me that I clicked with her straight away, and we didn't have to speak the same language. So it was always going to be a special friendship.
And how are you like off the court, and how do you get on socially?
Yeah, I mean, she's one of my best friends. We've just become so close, and she's actually a bridesmaid at my wedding. She's just an incredible human. Honestly, she's just the nicest, kindest person, and we just have this incredible bond on and off the court. And that's again why I love tennis, is because it's so much more than the sport. It brings people together, and that's something that I'll take away from the sport, and I'll keep her with me.
And I guess for her, Tokyo coming up, she must be very excited about that.
Yeah, she is. Like, for her, obviously, to medal in her home country would just be incredible. To play her against her in her home country is going to be really difficult for me. So, yeah, maybe we'll just wait and see what happens with that.
So yeah, obviously we've talked about your double success there, but your third defining moment came in 2015 when you were the US Open singles champion. And like you said earlier, you've always preferred being on your own, and you've never really been a massive team player. So for you to win a solo Grand Slam title must have been a huge moment.
It was massive. I think by that time everyone had like written me off as a singles player, because I had so much success in doubles. I just became like a doubles specialist. But for me, it was never about that. Obviously, I love playing doubles and winning with you. It's incredible. But there's just so much more that I have about me and my game that I wanted to showcase in singles. So to actually win that title was a very, very special time in my career.
And yeah, just talk us through that kind of the week in that final. It was, to be in a Grand Slam singles final is huge anyway. And like I said, the press probably would have been all over that as well. And whenever there's a Brit in a final at the US Open, it's always a big deal. So yeah, what was it like when you actually won it? And it was, you were a Grand Slam singles champion.
I mean, it was a weird week. The week before I'd played a tournament and I was horrendous. Like, my whole game fell apart and I was panicking. I was on the court training and doing like extra hours in a competition because my game was so bad. I'd lost really early on. I went to US Open not feeling great about my game. But I actually got a really good draw, which I was really happy about. And then I remember in the semi-finals, I was a set and 4-2 down against the world number 3 at the time. And I thought, well, this is me. I'm done. I'm going home. And I just don't know what happened. There's just like a switch in my head that was like, okay, sort of like, let's just give it all you got. There's nothing to lose. And next thing I know, I'd like won in 3 sets and I was in a final, and it was just like, how did that even happen? And then on finals day, again, it was a shambles, if I'm honest. Like, we had a rain delay for the whole day, and like I kept getting ready, I kept warming up, and then there was a rain delay and it was really throwing me off. By the end, we actually went on court at about 10 p.m. and I was like knackered. And I won the first set 6-4, I remember it. And I lost the second set 6-love, and I actually only won 7 points in the second set. I was that bad. And then I won the third set 6-1, and I had 9 match points, and it was just the most insane week with the insane match. I won. It was like insane. It was about 1 a.m. and me and Yui went to get chicken nuggets afterwards.
I was going to ask you how you celebrated, but you're in New York and it's chicken nuggets for celebration.
Well, I mean, it was, yeah, by the time we'd got back to the hotel, it was about 2 a.m. And we just like, shall we just get nuggets? That was it. Like, yeah, it was amazing, but weird.
I can imagine. How was the reaction like back home then when you saw your family and everything? They must have been thrilled.
Yeah, and they actually stayed up to watch the match because of the time difference. They were like so tired the next day, but no, they were all really, really happy, and it was the first time that they'd seen me like really achieve something amazing in singles. So obviously they were super proud.
And I guess just in terms of singles now, I mean, do you feel like you've got unfinished business on the singles court?
Yeah, massively. I've never achieved what I feel like I could achieve. Like, I have never reached my potential in singles, and I honestly believe that is a psychological thing. I know I'm a good tennis player. I know I can compete because I've done it. It's just sorting out my head. So hence why I'm really working hard on that now, and I'm just looking forward to getting back competing properly.
Yeah, how do you approach tournaments? Because you mentioned earlier that you had a nice draw at the US Open. Do you look intensely at the draws? Do you look at head-to-head and stats and things like that? Or do you just try and leave that noise behind you?
I used to. I used to be really obsessed with that stuff. And you know what, ever since I've had Jackson, I'm not really that bothered. I just sort of turn up, and I've realised that I need to focus on my game, because the only person who's going to win that match is me. It doesn't really matter if I'm playing the world number 1 or the world number 8. I know my tactics, I know my strengths, and I have to play to that. And it's a complete mindset switch, which, like I said, happened organically when I became a mum. I guess my perspective on things changed, but there's still that sort of doubt that creeps in that I'm trying to get rid of. So that's what we're working on.
Obviously, after that US Open singles title, the awards came. You were Disability Sportsman of the Year, and then the letter came through about an MBE. And how did you feel when you got that letter?
I was so shocked. I didn't expect that at all. The only Paralympians or disability athletes that I knew about who got MBEs, OBEs, were gold medalists, and obviously I was not one of those. So it was amazing that I'd been put forward for that. And yeah, I remember the day, it was Princess Anne who gave me my my little medal. And yeah, it was great. I do remember thinking, how am I gonna, because you have to curtsy and then you can't turn your back on them, and I was like in my wheelchair, I was like, how am I gonna do that? It was I was really stressing about that because I didn't want to be disrespectful, so I just sort of wheeled back, bowed my head. But incredible day. I just absolutely loved it. It was an honour.
And just moving on to your fourth defining moment, which is the British Open 2015 and 2016. Why was that one so important to you?
Yeah, that one, it wasn't a big title, but it was a big personal goal. I've literally grown up at the British Open. I feel like it's part of my life. I think I was 3 first time I went there, and I've only ever missed one when I had my son. And I used to go there with my dad, and I've seen the tournament evolve over the years, and it's a special tournament for me, and I always wanted to win it. And when I won it in 2015, it was just a really incredible sort of sentimental achievement for me. And then I went and won it the next year, which was even more crazy because I never expected to win it once, let alone 2 times. So it's that one's more of a sentimental one, but it's still really special.
You mentioned your dad played a lot. Has he been such an inspiration throughout your career as well? And like, has he been there for advice throughout your career?
Yeah, I mean, he was my coach up until I was about 11 or 12, and he's always been with me alongside, watching, supporting, traveling when he could. Both my parents sacrificed a lot for me to play tennis in the early days. Like, they sacrificed family holidays because they needed to fund my tennis. So he's always been there, and it was sort of a family rival. My dad's got a bronze. Can I do better than a bronze? So far I haven't. So I've just matched him. So part of me wanting to get gold is so I can wave it in his face and be like, well, I'm better than you.
Well, I guess you've got 2 bronzes because in Rio 2016 you got backed it up and got another bronze. How was that medal compared to the first one?
Yeah, again, Rio was a strange time for me. I went into it in such good shape. I was one of the contenders for gold. Obviously, I'd won British Open. I'd won US Open a few months before, and I was in a really good place, And unfortunately, it didn't work out for me. I broke my wrist in the quarterfinals of the singles, and still had to play a bronze medal playoff with a broken wrist, and I was just so heartbroken by what had happened. I had to have an injection of anaesthetic, and the doctor said, "Oh, you've got 2 hours to play your bronze medal playoff before the pain comes back, like it's going to wear off." And we went to 3 sets, and the pain was wearing off, and I was like hitting my shoulder, doing pain referral. My shoulder was all bruised. It was just it was weird. And obviously we came away with the bronze medal, and at the time I was really, really disappointed. I was, if you'd see me on the podium, I was in tears, but not out of joy. And it was like a really bad breakup. I felt like it took me a good year to get over Rio. But now I look back on it and think, wow, I won a bronze medal alongside Lucy with a broken wrist. Like, that's pretty badass. Like, I'm actually really proud of it, but not because it's a bronze, but because of the circumstance that the bronze came out of.
Yeah, I think that's it. A lot of people don't know the stories behind the medals, and some do carry more weight than others just because of the circumstances leading up to them.
Absolutely. And, I remember after my quarterfinals, people were tweeting me saying how disappointing that you didn't even try. Can't believe she put no effort in. Like, what a disgrace. And I was so heartbroken that the public had watched that thinking that I'd done that, because obviously they didn't know that I'd actually just broken my wrist. It was really, really hard, and I couldn't then say or tweet out I broke my wrist because I still had a bronze medal playoff. I couldn't let my opponents know that. So it was really hard time, really tough.
Then I guess you came to your 4th Wimbledon title, which you won with a little bit of help from somebody growing inside you.
Yeah. Morning sickness was horrendous. It was like all day sickness, and nobody knew. I had to tell Yui, obviously. So she was really good about it. She was like, "Oh, it's fine. Like, let's just try and get to the final. That would be a really good achievement if we could become runners up." And she was like, we got to the final, and she was really stressed. She was like, "Are you going to be okay? Like, is the baby going to be okay? Don't overstretch yourself. Don't push for anything crazy." Like, she was really stressing. And obviously I was being sick as well. And I honestly, I don't really know how we won the match. I literally just gave it everything I could at the time. And Yui, she carried me. Like, she was incredible. And she really took on an extra bit of work for me. And yeah, I don't know how we did it, but it was incredible.
So how was it feeling kind of keeping that secret to yourself in a way and not having everybody else know? And I guess the press would have been there, like, focusing on your match, hoping you can win, but not knowing what was going on. That must have been quite strange.
Oh, it was so hard. Well, I remember when we won and we had to do a speech, and my coaching team who knew I was pregnant, you could see them like, "Oh God, I hope she doesn't announce it," because we hadn't had the scan. So we didn't know, just don't do it then. And all I wanted to do was be like, "I'm pregnant," and I just couldn't. So I just had to make it up, and just say how incredible it was, and like, I'll see you in a few months kind of thing. And yeah, but luckily a couple of weeks later we had the scan and everything was fine, so I could announce it on social media, so it was okay.
And does that mean that Jackson is now a Wimbledon champion already?
That's what I keep saying to everyone, because obviously he basically won Wimbledon as a fetus, so that's what I've put in his little baby book.
Yeah, Wimbledon champion. Oh, well, who knows? Do you think one day he will be a Wimbledon champion? Is that your plan?
Well, I mean, he's really sporty. He loves sport. He plays football and tennis, and he really loves tennis. And he's going to go back to tennis lessons actually next week, so I'm really excited about that. But who knows? I'm just going to expose him to as many sports as possible and see what happens.
Obviously, we've mentioned Wimbledon quite a lot. It's a great championships. Obviously, the fans, so passionate. And I suppose for wheelchair tennis, it took a while to get the singles in there, didn't it? It was 2016 when they finally let a singles competition go through. Do you feel like they were a little bit behind on that front?
I mean, it was difficult because we knew that it would take up more court time, more umpires, more staffing, an extra day as well competing. So, it wasn't as easy as just throwing a singles tournament. But I think it was a long time coming, and then everyone else followed suit. So I'm really happy now that singles is there, and now recently, obviously, the quad division's in as well. So obviously the next thing now is, can they increase draw sizes, because it's amazing now that wheelchair tennis has got that sort of depth in the game where we are able to increase draw sizes at slams, which I hope to see soon.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Like, how, since you started playing, how has the depth of the sport evolved from when you first picked up a racket to what you're playing at now?
Massively. Like, I remember if you were sort of top 5 in the world, no one was touching you, whereas now, the top 8, they're losing to, 12, 14, 15 in the world, and the top 8 are beating each other regularly. So it's not as like a given anymore, which I think is incredible. And we've got new people coming through the ranks all the time. We've got young guns coming through. Like, okay, granted, I'm almost 29, so I'm kind of young, but I feel like I'm a veteran, like, because I've been on the tour for so long. And then these like 18-year-olds are coming in and shocking the world. So it's really good to see.
And I guess Wimbledon singles title, that must be still on your list to check off.
Absolutely. This year, that's one of my big goals, is to win on the grass. I think I won a round at Wimbledon once, and then that was it. So yeah, that would be like icing on the cake. That would be incredible.
I guess it must have been tough to miss it last year as well, because obviously the other tournaments eventually got things together, because there's a bit of hoo-ha with whether they were going to host the wheelchairs or not. But so you missing it last year must give you a bit more motivation this year. Yeah,
I mean, to be honest, I think I was more gutted about Wimbledon not going ahead than my marriage not going ahead. I was going to get ready. I was going to get married in November. And I was so gutted that Wimbledon wasn't going ahead. I just remember it. I was standing on my landing and I read the email and I was like, no, Wimbledon's not going ahead. Like, how am I going to survive? Because it means that much to me. Like, it's such a big part of my life and I just love it there.
And then obviously we've mentioned Jackson quite a lot already. Your 5th defining moment is, coming back after that. Obviously he was born in January 2018. And then, you were kind of back winning slams within, 2 years of that.
Yeah. Well, originally I wasn't sure I was going to come back because obviously after Rio I wasn't in a good place mentally, and I wasn't over what happened at Rio. So I really needed that time out. It wasn't actually, coincidentally, until Wimbledon 2018 where I was commentating, and I was watching the matches and I was thinking I could still take these girls, and then it started coming back, that competitiveness in me. I was like, yeah, I'm coming back, I can beat these people. I needed to lose like a good 2 stone, get a new wheelchair and all new clothes and everything, a new team. It was really tough, but yeah, my mind was made up after Wimbledon. I was like, yeah, I'm coming back, and it was an amazing comeback. Like, that was not planned, to come back and win so many tournaments and get back inside the top four in the world like so quickly. I think I surprised myself a bit with that.
And I guess you've obviously, like, Serena Williams has done the same thing, come back, and does that kind of give you like hope and motivation that it is now becoming the norm that you can come back after having a child?
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of do look to people like that. You know, I saw Serena do it and I was like, well, if she can do it, I can do it, definitely. I just kind of see it like I'm a working mum and I'm just going back to work. And I kind of want it to be more normalised in sport. I don't want women to think that just because they've had a baby, it doesn't mean that they can't come back to elite sport. What I would say is that you need to have a really strong network around you, because that's what I did. I surrounded myself with a new team, a really positive team. I had my mum on hand. I had nursery. I had a very supportive partner. And if it wasn't for all of that, then yeah, it would have been really tricky. So I'm very grateful for the support I had.
And a lot of those that do come back, they do say how it is, like you said, it switches your mentality a little bit. I guess before you're a parent, you know, tennis is the be-all and end-all, and that's what you're stressing out about. But when you've got other distractions now, and tennis maybe isn't your number one focus anymore, and that must then help you relax a little bit more on court.
Yeah, like tennis was my world. It was everything. I lived and breathed it. And if I lost a tennis match, it was like losing a limb. Like, it was so hard to take. And you're right. As soon as I had Jackson, I suddenly had this little human I had to take care of, and he was the world. And it massively changed my perspective on life and on tennis. And I think maybe that's why my comeback was so successful, because I was so chilled. I didn't have any expectations. If I lost, I lost. I was going home to my lovely little boy. Now I still feel like that, but I feel myself getting sucked into tennis, that competitive side of tennis now, where I'm like being a bit mean to myself and like, okay, I need to sort this out. I need to win this. I can't make a mistake here. So, and then I go back home and I get grounded by Jackson, and he just brings me back to earth. So, he's a massive part of my tennis, and he doesn't even realise it.
And now he's getting a bit older. Is he becoming a bit more aware of how good his mum is?
Yeah, he's 3 now. Obviously, I would have liked him to see me play more, but with the circumstances, he hasn't been able to. But he does know that mummy plays tennis, but I don't think he realises like the extent of what I do. He just knows that I play tennis, and he just asks if I win or if I lose.
And does he give any feedback?
If I tell him I've won, he often says, "Oh, you've won again." And then if I say I've lost, he's like, "Oh no." And then he just tells me something random. So he knows winning, losing, tennis. But yeah, I really want to bring him to more tournaments, hopefully in the summer when we're allowed to.
And just looking a bit further, I guess now he's getting a bit older, do you see yourself throwing yourself a bit more into the tennis tour, or are you starting to wind down a little bit? How do you see the next few years going?
I mean, I've often said like Tokyo will probably be my last Paralympics, just purely because of kids, having more kids, and I can't put a lot of childcare on my mum. I think she's done it for quite a while, but I haven't set like a date or anything for retirement. To be honest, I'm just so focused on Tokyo, and I think what I'll do is I'll just see how I feel after Tokyo, and I'm just going to ride on my feelings, because I'm not quite ready to leave the sport just yet.
But then do you think you could find yourself getting sucked into Paris being a few years later, because it is obviously now only going to be a 3-year gap between Paris and Tokyo?
Well, exactly, that's the thing, isn't it? Because I said I wasn't going to come back after Jackson, and I did, so let's never say never.
And I guess, like you say, for Jackson, it would be nice to see you play a bit more, I suppose, once everything's back to normal and he can come to your matches and support you on the court side. Yeah,
absolutely. I'd love to bring him back to Wimbledon this year, because he loved it last year, and he didn't know what was going on, but he had a blast. So I'd love to bring him back this year when he knows what's going on, and he'll be able to watch me, and yeah, that would be really cute.
Do you have any goals post-retirement? You mentioned already that you did some commentary, and that was kind of what brought you back into the sport. Did you enjoy doing that kind of media stuff?
Yeah, I did. I don't want to become a coach or anything like that. I'm actually a qualified mortgage advisor, so I would really love to go into financial services once my career's over. So that's my post plan. But I could never just walk away from tennis. It's been my whole life, and my partner is he's head of our junior team. And I'm going to stay in it. I love our junior team. I love, the kids, and sort of taking on that mentorship role and turning up for camps and giving them pointers and hitting with them. And so I will definitely be heavily involved in like the development side of tennis. I just don't want to take on like a performance coach role or anything like that.
Just more of a kind of a mentorship, I guess, is what you're looking for.
Yeah, and the thing about development tennis and kids is that they don't have the performance mindset. Performance players can be a nightmare, and I've had enough of that with myself. So I'd like to just be with the kids and just have a bit of fun and hopefully relieve a bit of pressures on them and stuff. So yeah, that's what I'd like to do.
And is it looking good, like domestically, in terms of the talent that's coming through?
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, we've got some real talent, especially with the boys. We have two real potentials, Ben and Dan, and who are coming through, and I could really see them meddling in the future. I would love to see more girls. I'd love to see more women and girls play tennis and come through the ranks. I think that's across the board on all sports, to be honest, but definitely in tennis I would love to see that more. But I know that for next year the LTA have got a really amazing pathway coming in just to find more talent. So hopefully I'll be involved in that in some way, even if it's a small part, because that's something I'm passionate about.
We know Wimbledon's a big centrepiece for the sport. Do you feel like they're getting it better now with prize money increasing, and in terms of the wheelchair events, we've mentioned obviously it's expanding. Do you feel like wheelchair tennis still has a long way to go to kind of catch up and be a little bit more visible in the wider media?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that's always improving, and we've come a long way since London 2012. I do feel like London was the catalyst for that. Like before London, it was kind of nothing, and then after London, it was like catapulted. Like prize money has increased massively at Grand Slams, although I'd still like to see that more. But it's for the players who aren't in the slams, who can't make a living out of it, because the prize money just isn't there if you're outside of the slams. And I'd like to see more sponsorship of disabled athletes in general. I feel like disabled athletes should be put out there more in the media. They should be promoted more, because I often find that they are the best role models, because they're so flawed, right, physically flawed, but yet they've overcome that and they have no limitations, and I feel like that's what young people need right now. Again, it's something I'm quite passionate about, so I see it going that way. I just hope it continues.
Yeah, so where do you think the sport will be in like 10 years' time?
I would hope that we would have bigger draws at Grand Slams. Prize money would be like at least doubled, so that we can make a real living out of what we're doing. And also just more sponsorship of, yes, individual athletes, but of our ITF tour as well, so that the people who aren't in the Grand Slams can still make a living out of doing, because they're professionals, they're full-time, and they deserve to make a living out of it.
Yeah, I guess a lot of people don't think about even just travelling to tournaments, hotel bookings, all that kind of stuff. It all adds up, and I guess, I mean, you've been to slams, so you kind of obviously made a living out of it in some respects, but equally it still is quite a cost-effective sport, and if you're good enough and you don't have the funds behind it, it must be quite tough to make it.
It is tough, and equipment's expensive. If you're just starting out, a wheelchair is 4 or 5 grand, and obviously for the top players they get sponsorship, or maybe they can afford that, but for the younger ones coming through, it can be difficult. But saying that, once you're in the sport and you show promise, there's just a whole world opens up for you, financially, obviously, yes, but also for your life. Like, tennis has changed my life completely, for the better, obviously, and I would want that for other people who are interested in wheelchair tennis.
And when you do finally hang up the racket, will you miss it? Will you miss the travel? Will you miss the competition, that kind of stuff?
I don't think I'll miss the travel, because travelling with 2 chairs and all your bags is a nightmare. But I will definitely miss the competition, because I love competition. I love it more than anything. And that's going to be hard to let go. Like, I've never been a big fan of training. That's not a secret. But competition, that's where my passion lies. So yeah, maybe I'll creep into a few tournaments when I'm like 40 just to sort of keep my eye in the game.
And do you think, compared to like where the sport was when you started to where it is now, if it's obviously when you retire, it's in a better state than it was when you started. Will there be a little part of you that thinks, oh, maybe if I was 10 years younger, I'd be enjoying this, I'd be reaping the benefits of it? Or are you happy to kind of be one of the pioneers that kind of led the way to getting the sport to where it is now?
I'm happy, with where I am because I've seen the sport grow. I fear that maybe if I would have come into it now, I would have been less grateful because, there's a lot of money in it, especially British tennis. There's a lot of money in it. And we're very, very fortunate to have the likes of the LTA who were just incredible support. It was different when I was younger. So because I've seen it evolve and I've seen how little we had and how we had to make it work, I actually love the journey that I've been on. And that's partly why I want to still be involved with the juniors now to sort of make sure that they don't get egos and they don't get ahead of themselves. They still have to put in the work and they don't just demand and expect stuff. And obviously our juniors don't right now. They're amazing. But yeah, it's just bringing this perspective on those things.
What's the biggest learning you've taken from all the highs and lows of your career? What's the one thing you take away from it all?
For me, I think it's just about how, I was born disabled and I didn't have the easiest of childhoods. And there were a lot of limitations sort of put on what I could and couldn't do at the time. And I just sort of was like, I don't fancy that. I'm just going to do what I want to do. And tennis has just showed me that it doesn't really matter where you come from or what disability you've got or what limitation you have, that kind of anything's possible, but it's down to you. If you want to put in the work for your dreams and goals, then it's 100% achievable, but you just have to believe in yourself and surround yourself with like-minded people.
Are there any regrets you have? Any matches you do differently?
Oh, a handful of regrets, so many regrets. But I think my biggest regret really is not putting in that work when I was younger. I took it for granted. I was a bit lazy. I was riding off talent. And I just wish that I hadn't have done that. I wish I would have put in the work early and maybe I would already have a gold. But it is what it is. That's how it went. And I just sort of have to leave that in the past and be like, okay, yeah, I've done that. I can't change that. But now is what I can change. I can change what happens in the next couple of months. And that's why I'm so focused on Tokyo and not having a repeat of the last couple of games.
Yeah, what is your realistic goals and expectations for Tokyo?
Gold. I want a singles gold. I think also for doubles, I want to be in that gold medal match. I don't want another bronze. I've got 2 of them. I don't need a third. And I honestly believe that me and Lucy are in such a better place now for that. But in terms of in singles, I want gold, but I want to be on the podium. I feel like if I got to Tokyo and I put in my best performance, I put in my best preparation, I did everything I could, then it kind of doesn't matter what happens because I know that I would be really pleased with what I've done. And if someone beats me, it's because they beat me, not because I lost. And that's what's most important. But obviously, gold.
Of course. We've mentioned obviously quite a lot over the last half an hour or so about the 5 defining moments that you've had. I'm just going to recap them for you. London 2012, that first medal, the Calendar Slam in 2014, your first Grand Slam singles title in 2015, the British Open in 15 and 16, and coming back after giving birth to Jackson. If you had to pick one of those 5 as your most defining moment, which one would that be?
I would have to say coming back from having Jackson, because even though it's not the most amazing achievement and a calendar Grand Slam would be, because obviously that projected my career, having Jackson and coming back afterwards just taught me so much. It put life and sport into perspective for me. It changed my whole mindset and he's changed my life. And that's something that is going to be with me for a long time and what I'm going to take into Tokyo.
Cool. Well, hopefully in about 6 or 7 months' time, we'll be saying your defining moment will be that you are a Paralympic champion.
Yeah, and then that would trump coming back after Jackson. I'm just stating that now. That would be hallelujah moment. So hopefully, yeah.
Okay, great. Well, good luck in Tokyo, Jordanne, and hopefully we'll see you on the top step of the podium.
Thank you very much.
Well, hopefully Jordanne will be coming back from Tokyo with a gold medal in her bag, and then she can tell her dad who really is the best in their family. Thank you so much for listening to the My Defining Moments podcast. I really do appreciate all the feedback I've had so far. If you're enjoying it, please share it, mention it on social media, and tag me at ChrisBrownSport. You can always leave a comment or rate or review on your podcast supplier. Speaking of which, I am on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, Amazon. You can find this podcast literally anywhere. And I'll be back very soon with more My Defining Moments.